Hello, guys. Welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel on your way in and making sure that you guys get into the chat. I always see there's lots of chat messages. I'm sorry I'm late. Make sure you guys get into the chat and let me know what you guys are thinking, how you guys are feeling. It's been an emotional couple of days in the Arsenal sphere. So I know you guys have tons to say. I did say yesterday after the show that I did after the Noni Here We Go that potentially I would feel better today. I don't know if I necessarily feel better. I do feel a lot less emotionally charged. I'll say that. This show is going to be about the Gyokeres saga because that's, I feel like, the next thing on the menu. Noni is what it is. He's signing for Arsenal. It's done. So, but Gyokeres is still out there in the ether, just waiting for us to close this deal. And so I wanted to, maybe if you haven't been on Twitter, if you're not quite sure what's going on, maybe you're confused about what's going on with the Gyokeres deal and why it's stalling. I want to give a little bit of clarity to that, a little bit of an explanation based on, what I've read through, reliable sources like David Ornstein and stuff like that. And just kind of, chat about what our next move should be, because it's Friday. And I was hoping that, we got the advanced negotiations on Sunday. It's Friday now. So it's been about 5 days, 6 days, no, 4 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 6 days-ish, 5, 6 days. And we're no closer really to getting it done. And so I know people are getting anxious and, saying that the club is penny pinching and all this kind of stuff. So I definitely wanted to address that. I see my internet is kind of going up and down. It'll clear up in a second if it's not clear now. I can see in the corner, it says up and down, and it went down a bar. It went back up. So yeah, but let's get into it. Let's see. The Ornstein report calmed me down with Gyokeres. It seems like Sporting is failing at whatever they are trying. We're at the end game for the Gyokeres deal. We'll get a here we go by Monday, in my opinion. Well, less negatively emotionally charged is a synonym with better. Okay. Our club is cheap. Mark says, much love, Jess. Much love to you as well. Probably going to draw this one out for a couple of days. Gyokeres is missing training today and tomorrow, and then Sporting will start to sweat. Here we go is probably next week. And yeah, we'll get into that. But I want to tell you guys first that I'm starting a new series, and I'm a little scared to start the series because I'm like, what is this going to be like? But I think this is actually the perfect time to get this person on here because he's one of my favorite content creators and he's an up, So my new series is called Rivalry Aside. The first episode is actually going to be later on today at 1 p.m. my time, 9 p.m. UK time. Matisse will be on the channel and we'll be discussing, you guessed it, the Noni transfer. I want to get a rival's view, especially somebody that's watched Noni over the last 3 seasons, their view on how bad is this player really? What is he going to add? And how a Chelsea fan actually feels about this, and just give some perspective on that side. So yeah, I'm sure I'm due a cooking. I'm pretty sure like it's gonna get nasty, but listen, personally, I like talking to rivals at times. I feel like it's a good opportunity to see where we're at, and outside opinions when they're not totally agenda driven can be useful, so if you guys want to join, it should be a good time. I would say that if you do join, let's be nice to our guests. We don't want to make it so that no rivals ever want to come onto this channel again. But it's something that I want to do on a regular basis, so just to get a different point of view, get some other content creators involved in the channel. And yeah, so let me know if there's anybody else that you'd like to see. come on the channel, and I'll definitely reach out to them. Shamaya says, I'm excited for this. Matisse is my favorite non-Arsenal content creator. Same, same. He's really funny and he has a good point of view. And yeah, I love it. And I think this is the perfect time to get him on, to be honest. I think this is the perfect time to get him on, because I know he's definitely going to banter, but he's going to be honest about Nani. So I think this is actually a perfect time. Marco says, Jess, tell Matisse he needs to put a shirt on for a show. Vic says, explain to me how 48.5 plus 3.5 is good business. But listen, we have all later on today when Matisse comes on to talk about Madueke. I think it's more important right now to talk about Gyokeres because that's the deal that I think we are looking forward to next. So I woke up this morning and I looked online, and of course, people that had not seen the Madueke news are panicking, but also there had been some updates from David Ornstein um, about what's going on with Gyokeres. And so we know that he had basically told Sporting that he wasn't going to come back to Sporting. He's never going to play for them again. And they were due back to train. And they gave him, he was due back to training a couple of weeks back. Not a couple weeks, couple days back. And he said he wasn't going to go. So they gave him extra days off. And he's still refusing to go. And so I don't know if they thought that he would change his mind. And, if there's a chance that he'll stay, that's going to give Sporting more of leverage. They actually have like no leverage right now in the deal whatsoever. They have a gentleman's agreement that has been reneged on from Gyokeres. So that's pissed him off so much that, he's wanting to go now, and he only wants to go to Arsenal. That really puts them in a situation where they kind of need to negotiate, meaning that we've already come up, they need to come down. And they don't want to do that. And I don't know if it's from their perspective, looking at from a Sporting perspective, if this means that they feel like, okay, if we start doing this and players want to leave and we start giving them what they want because they're not going to come to training, then we're in a situation where we have no leverage. If that makes sense, so I think that they don't want to look like the type of club where a player can just agitate for a move and they'll just cave in with whatever fee. The difference, though, is that this gentleman's agreement is there. And I know that people are like, well, it doesn't matter. A gentleman's agreement doesn't mean anything. But that's the main reason why they have no leverage. If there was no gentleman's agreement, then Gyokeres would not have any, like, he wouldn't feel like his whole grudge against them is not really about the fact that they're, want a certain fee and like they're being rigid. It's because Arsenal have already offered above what the gentleman's agreement was. And so, and when you do a gentleman's agreement, I mean, it's, players really shouldn't do it, but that doesn't alleviate the selling club from being assholes. It's not a good look to have agreed something with a player and they're like, cool, well, this is what I'm going to do. And then not only has the club that's come in offered what they want, but they've offered more. Right. And so I think from Sporting's perspective, they don't want to look like the type of club that's just going to roll over if a player wants to leave. But equally, they should have never agreed to the gentleman's agreement. And as much as that's been a negative thing for Gyokeres, it's also been a negative thing for Sporting because there's this thing between Sporting and Gyokeres that is making Gyokeres make it even more difficult for them to gain leverage in this deal. No gentleman's agreement, we would have to maybe come up a little bit more, or, we would be less, maybe sticking to the fee that we're looking for. It also maybe would be the case that Gyokeres be open to other clubs, but he's no longer open to other clubs. He's not coming because they've reneged on the gentleman's agreement. So now people are asking the question, does, Arsenal penny pinching. Um, our Arsenal penny pinching. And at first, I did think that they were penny pinching. I was like, well, you know, go above a little bit and like maybe it'll get done. But the reality is that the gentleman's agreement was for 60 plus 10. 60 plus 10. Sporting wants 70 plus 10, and we're 5 away. So what does that mean? That Arsenal have offered 75 million altogether. 75 million altogether, which is most likely 65 plus 10. Gentleman's agreement, 60 plus 10. Arsenal have offered 65 plus 10. Now, Sporting wants 70 plus 10. Now, who do you think needs to come down now? Who do you think needs to come off of it just a little bit for this deal to get done? Is it Arsenal, the club that's already come up, or is it Sporting, the club that asked for one thing, is getting more than that, is now asking for more? And this is what I'm saying. It's like, I get that we can say, just pay, just pay, just pay. But we've already come up. We've already come up. We have a certain valuation for the player. And you had this gentleman's agreement. He's not coming to training. He only wants to come to Arsenal. It's now up to Sporting to negotiate, to come down. It's not that we're not playing ball. If we had never come up in the beginning and never played ball at all, I can understand more. But again, they wanted originally, the gentleman's agreement was for 60 plus 10, 70 million euro package. We are 5 above that now. We've come up. So who needs to come down? It's Sporting. We have negotiated, we've come forward a little bit. And if they really want to get this deal done, which Ben Jacobs and Ornstein and everybody is saying is that all camps want to get it done, the only party that is keeping this from getting done now is Sporting. And it's all because of their ego. It's all because they don't want to look like they're just going to fold over. But the reason why they're having to fold over is not because Victor Gyokeres is being a dick. It's because you made this gentleman's agreement and you reneged. Both parties should have never agreed to this gentleman's agreement because it's been bad on both sides. Gyokeres should have never agreed to it. He should have got a release clause, like just a clear release clause with what he wanted, so that he could have gotten out on his own terms without having to trust anyone. And Sporting should have never agreed if they were never going to uphold it because they look bad. I know Arsenal fans think we look bad because right now we're in a tailspin of emotional, negativity because we have done this thing with Noni Madueke and now we're upset about it. But the reality is, to me, these are two completely separate things. These are two completely separate things. In my opinion, Arsenal have come to the center to try to negotiate with Sporting to get this player over the gentleman's agreement, and Sporting have moved the goalpost farther. They've moved the goalpost farther. So they need to come down. They need to come down and negotiate a little bit. The player's not coming to training. And I think what's happening now is they're realizing that he's not bluffing. I think they thought if they said, oh, well, you're, in breach of contract or whatever, the reason why they're giving him more days is because they think if they long it out, that he's going to come back on it. I don't think this man is coming back on it. He's 27 years old. He no longer wants to play for you, not because he's too good for the club, but because he doesn't fuck with you anymore. You're a liar, And so at some stage, Sporting need to just accept that they're getting more than what the gentleman's agreement was. So they're not getting less. They're not getting cheaped out, nothing. They're not. They're getting what they asked for within the gentleman's agreement and just calm the fuck down. It's just right now, it feels like the end of the road, meaning we're going to come to some kind of agreement soon. But, I don't even know because it just feels like they're more concerned about what they look like from the outside world than just moving forward. You guys need to replace Gyokeres. He's even said that even if he doesn't go to Arsenal, he's not going to play for you. He's going to get a loan and get out. We're at the stage now where it's so ugly that they just need to give it up. They just need to give it up. And I don't really blame Arsenal for being like, well, we've come up now. We've come up now. We're not at 60 plus 10 anymore. We're at 65 plus 10 now. 65 fixed fee for Gyokeres is more than good enough for a fee. They need to come down just ever so slightly. you know? And this is where I'm saying, like, there's sometimes where you wanna give the little bit extra, and we've done that. If we just keep giving the little bit extra, what's the next thing gonna be? "Oh, Arsenal are willing to come in up 70, let's ask for 75." You know? We've done our part. We've literally done our part. So they need to come down. You know, Gyokeres does not seem like he's bluffing, and them just giving him more days off is not going to help the scenario, you know? It's it's just so annoying, and there's just something about, um there's just something about this whole situation that is just tiring because everything with us becomes a saga. I mean, outside of when we wanna buy Chelsea players, but it's so rare that we, go into negotiations with a player and it just goes smoothly. There's always some fucking shit where they're just out and, just, "Oh, it's like, just come on, man." So, yeah. Um it's just wild, you know? Lionheart says it's not a good look for Sporting. And to me, I feel like the only club that looks bad right now is Sporting. I know we're not happy with Arsenal when it comes to the Noni thing, but in reality, I just do not blame them for coming a little bit closer and going above what the gentleman's agreement was and expecting Sporting to play ball. They're just being stubborn for stubborn's sake, and it's only looks bad on them. The only reason why Arsenal fans think it look bad on us is because they're mad about the Nani stuff. But let's be fucking for real, But I'm scared that Arsenal will walk away if it keeps dragging on like this. And I think an Ollie Watkins summer would be catastrophic based on what's already happened. So I don't know what's going to happen, but you know, I am a little bit worried, at this stage just because it's Friday and they're saying, "Oh, everybody wants a quick resolution." That's what Ben Jacobs has said, that now a quick resolution should be on the way. But I think that's because everybody's assuming that Sporting is going to let it go, that Sporting is going to do the right thing. But clubs don't always do the right thing. Sometimes they let their pride get in the way. And I'm afraid Sporting might get their panties in a twist and just not be able to let it go, instead of wanting your player, a player that's helped you win multiple titles, instead of letting him go to the place that he wants to go to have a good career. You guys are going to damage this relationship so badly. It's already damaged as it is, but make it even worse over 5 million euros. So fucking annoying. And it's the sporting director, I think it is. And he's just, as sporting president, Federico Varandas. He's he's a very unserious individual. Because if I'm a player and I'm watching this play out, I'm not signing for you unless I have a pretty low release clause, because I want to be able to leave when I want to. And you're essentially just holding this guy captive. He doesn't want to play for you anymore. He's helped you win titles. You should want him to go and thrive. You agreed to a gentleman's agreement that, like, I feel like I read somewhere, I could be wrong, but I feel like they have it on tape or they have some sort of record of it. So it's not looking good. I don't think Jokeris would feel this confident not coming to practice and, not, saying that he's not going to come back if he didn't have you know, some sort of evidence of this. So this looks bad on them, and only them. Arsenal have done their part. Sporting need to come down a little bit. Um, and they look so stupid. Like, I just don't understand what they're doing. I don't get it. Like, I'm just like, you seem so weird, So you're just weird. Most other times a player has been this bold, the deal gets done. And I'm hoping that we're not like the first team where it just collapses because both, they don't come down. But Sporting just seem incredibly just unmovable. They're so weird, Um, there's also maybe not so much updates on Rodrygo, but, if you guys want me to get into that, we can get into that as well while we're on the stream. Um, if Real Madrid tell Rodrygo to leave the club, he will accept, but only as long as he's the one who gets to choose his future club. The club that he's attracted to the most is Arsenal. That's what they're saying. Now, that's coming from Diario AS, whatever. And let's see. Premier League clubs have returned to inquire about Rodrygo, and it is likely that he will play in the opening fixture of the Premier League season. So this is, some stuff. I don't, I'm feeling a bit negative right now. So I'm like, do we even have the peas for it? Do we have the money for it? Like, or if we just fucked ourselves, like what? But now, like Marco's saying, Rodrygo does not want to leave Real Madrid, but he doesn't want to leave Real Madrid, but he's being pushed out, so and Marca are the ones that only post the part that sounds good for Real Madrid. I think they're posting he doesn't want to leave, but then they're not posting the second part where but Real Madrid are open to letting him go. And if they want to let him go, he wants to choose his new club. So I don't know how you guys feel about it now, but I'm feeling quite I'm very, oh, he's drinking water. I'm feeling a little about the Rodrygo thing, because I'm like, I don't believe Arsenal right now. I don't believe that Noni is not the left winger. And I'm just feeling a little pessimistic about the whole thing, because now I'm even seeing Crystal Palace are about to make it really hard for us to get fucking Eze as well. And it's just like, oh my goodness, can somebody just work with us and stop being a dick for 1 minute? It's like we're literally going to exit the Gyokeres saga and go straight into another one for Eze. It's ridiculous, because at the beginning of the window, they said that Crystal Palace were open to doing the installments, 3 installments. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, they feel confident that they'll be able to stave off Arsenal's, interest by asking for the full release clause. What the fuck? That's what I'm like, okay, so now that it's Arsenal that are interested, you don't want to do the installments anymore. I'm done. I'm done. Do we even have it would be a shame if this was true and Rodrygo was super interested in coming to Arsenal and we had done all this convincing, but we won't be able to get him because we couldn't sell Martinelli or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So I just don't believe, but I want to, but I don't, so let's get the Gyokeres one over the line, because that one is taking way too long. We just bought Noni for 50 million. If you were on another club, the price has just doubled. You can always come back to Chelsea. We work good together. I just hope we have the financial capability. Why does it have to be Chelsea? That made the negotiations easier. We got to see it to believe it. Sell Martinelli or wasting 52 million. Imagine approaching Rodrygo, doing all the business with Rodrygo and ending up with Madueke. Why are the deals of players we don't want done so quickly, and then they stall and drag on the deals of the players we want and are excited for? I mean, I don't actually think the Gyokeres one is on us, I'll be honest. And I'm very much a advocate of being specific about what my gripes are and not just being mad for mad's sake, or blaming Arsenal for absolutely everything, because I don't think Arsenal are in the wrong every single time. Early on in the Declan Rice saga, I remember that Arsenal fans were absolutely killing the club for putting in that cursory bid of 80 something million. And because, the West Ham president came out and said that we were being cheap and it was just embarrassing. And then rivals jumped on it. They jumped on it. And I was just like, it's just the first bid, you guys, relax. And we eventually got it over the line. We put in a bid for 100 million for Declan Rice. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, my club is serious. It's just like, sometimes we don't have to just be upset for upset's sake. I get it. I am disappointed about the Madueke stuff, and I still to this day cannot understand it and feel like it is throwing a big, gray cloud over, the window. But Do I think that they're in the wrong for the Gyokeres thing? No. The fuck? I really don't. Um, let's see. Wild why does everybody always remind me of this? Leave me alone. Good day, Jess. What do you make of the Nani signing, and do you think Ethan has a career at Arsenal? Um, you know, I listen, just very quickly, just because, we've done like at least 4 streams about Nani, and we'll do another one later on today. I don't understand the signing whatsoever, and I'm still finding it very difficult to understand what he's going to bring to the club. Um, I think he was too expensive to be a backup, but he's not good enough to be a starter. So there's that. And of course, Ethan has a career at the club. He's going to play 8-10, and Arteta just has to trust him to come in for Odegaard because that's who he's meant to be coming in for. Look at how much City are spending on backups. 50 million for Nani. Isn't that outrageous? Um, I want to come back to that. AFC Plug says, "Hey Jess, are you live on YouTube?" Yes, I am. We are on YouTube right now. Yes, I am live. But let's see. In regards to this whole paying too much and stuff, I think the main reason why I think we overpaid is because I don't rate the player. But somebody put up a list of players that have gone in the Premier League that are um, around the same level as Nani. And so that's the going rate for players of this level, I guess. You think of like Brennan Johnson, um, Alanga, players like that. So maybe it's not so much that he's so overpriced. I think it's mostly just, it's mostly just the gloss of, I don't think this player is any good. And a lot of that is the Chelsea of it all. Um, but I know that people are putting out this whole like, oh, well, he's a backup and that's what you have to pay for a backup. But we're not sure that he's a backup. And I think that's the main thing that people are missing, is that a lot of Arsenal fans do not believe he's going to come in and be a backup. It's the pulling out the rug from underneath us. And then all of a sudden he's starting on the left. And then they say, this is always the plan, that kind of stuff. So yeah, but it's kind of depressing, that we may be Rodrygo's main choice and we may not actually go get him. So, you know, um, so yeah, but on the Jokeris thing, I'm expecting, you know, this to get done soon. This is the guy, this is who we've been chasing since, the Sesko thing has been done. And he's done everything in his power to get it done. And I feel like all 3 groups owe it to him to get it done. I think he's done more than enough, right? So it's time for this to get done. I'm really kind of tired of this whole saga because it just feels like, can you just let the boy go? It's just ridiculous. I don't know if it's because Arsenal have come up and tried to get him. I don't really get it. I don't get it. Let's see. Uh, let's see. I meant the Eze deal, Mosquera deal. What's happening with those? Those are deals we want to see move along. There's no advancement. I don't actually know what's going on with either one of those. I think the Eze thing, the last I read was that Arsenal are going to step up their interest, as Arsenal are going to step up their interest, Arsenal are going to step up their interest, but until we actually get in contact with Crystal Palace, I don't know. Up until this point, we've been talking to his agents and stuff like that, So honestly, I don't actually know what's going on, with the Eze thing, but I am concerned that Crystal Palace are wanting to get the full release clause because it's us. And because at the beginning of the window, there were many, many reports that came out that now they'd be very interested in breaking it down into the three installments. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, actually, we're gonna take the entire release clause. And it's just like, for fuck's sake, you know? And another club that wants to hold somebody hostage that's ready to go, a 27-year-old that has their whole, like, this is the last part of you know, their career. And a club is like, nah, we're trying to keep you here. Like, you guys are fucking weirdos. Um, let's see. But like Nico Shira, not the most reliable, said Eze has agreed personal terms with Arsenal, discussions ongoing between Arsenal and Crystal Palace. So we'll see, how that pans out. But up until this point, basically, I think what we can surmise is that Arsenal are going to make contact for Eze, but Crystal Palace are going to make it incredibly difficult. Yesterday, Ben Jacobs says Arsenal are expected to approach Crystal Palace to formally discuss Eze. Palace attacker is still high in our thinking, and it follows positive talks with player camp. And then remember, yesterday, Fabrizio said that, the original deal or the original plan for Arsenal was to basically not pay the release clause and to pay it in installments. So they need to talk to Crystal Palace about it. And they're still talking to Eze. So, I don't think anything is happening. So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So just to also update you guys on something that's happening right now. So remember that somebody actually came into my stream yesterday and um blamed me for the attacks on Madueke. So I don't know who started the hashtag, but it wasn't me. And I thought Hagen had started it, but he definitely retweeted it and amplified it. And so he's now backtracking off of all of this stuff and, whatever. And now he's coming to me and trying to make it seem like he doesn't have anything to do with it. And I actually think he plays a much bigger part in all of this than I could have ever, because I, for 3 or 4 streams, 4, actually 5 streams, one on Diluted, I said that the abuse was out of control and that hashtag was ridiculous. And the hashtag is actually what started it, and he amplified it. So you sharing it is also, it's like when you share something, it is a like confirmation or like a I agree with this or whatever. And so I'm not having this shit. It's like, what you were doing. You're not stupid. You do it all the time. You rage bait and it's got out of control. And he's played a major, major role in that. And I'm not taking any responsibility for it. Like, the fuck, it's like now you're backtracking and you're like, this is just so ridiculous, the murals. And I'm like, you don't think you had anything to do with that? Like, bruh, you're the first person that I saw using that hashtag, and it was just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Weirdest people on the planet. Let's see. People are only responsible for their own actions, simple as WJS. What a fan base will fall for anything. Arsenal always stalls when it comes to buying a quality player. Remember Suarez from Liverpool before Barca took him away from us. Let's see. Norgard seems like a chill guy. No need for a man backtracking on anything. Bayern is getting Rodrygo. But with words, I can't see them signing another 90 million player. I mean, listen, if he's actually liking us the most, we need to go get him. Let's see. Hold on real quick. Really quick. Anyways, next. All right, so let's see. Is the Arnetta video real? I don't know what that means. If Liverpool sell Darwin or one of the two youths, they could easily spend big again. They literally didn't spend money last year. I'm getting really concerned about this window. Could have saved Madueke money on Rodrygo. As long as we get Eze, I don't care about Rodney. I think you mean Rodrygo. Chelsea won't get Rodrygo. He may not be willing to go there. Liverpool can actually get him as they're building to win things. But I just actually think we could get him. It's not so much that I don't think that we can get him. That's not the problem. I don't actually have a problem with 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 other teams being interested. I would imagine this is what I'm saying. Like people are saying, like, oh, you know, I feel like I actually rate Rodrygo and I think he's really good and would take us to the next level. So I expect other good teams to be invested in him and want him. I don't really like being interested in players that nobody else wants. To me, that's kind of like a red flag. So I would imagine other teams are going to be interested. That's not my problem because I know that Arsenal can convince a player to come, even with other teams being interested, because we've done that before. It's not like Zubamendi or Rice was not, being sought after by better teams, so that's not really my concern. My concern is if we've already gotten him interested in us, are we going to be able to get him because we've overspent somewhere else? Because if any of it, like I feel like Madueke just was not a priority and should have never been a priority. It should have been Gyokeres and then Rodrygo and Eze. And it's just a very strange way of doing things if we end up not having the money, which is kind of what happened in the summer window where we got Havertz. Havertz was a player we didn't need, nobody wanted. It was a strange signing. It's like it's the same thing as the Madueke thing where you're like, why would we link with this player? He doesn't solve the problem that we need. We needed a left winger, and we ended up getting a right winger, and he's not very good. So it's kind of like, what are we doing? Havertz was the same thing. It's like, well, we need to replace Xhaka, but we're bringing in Havertz. Doesn't make sense. And then it ended up being the case that Kudus, who was already wanting to come to Arsenal, was desperate to come, waiting around for us to put in a bid, never really, it didn't come to fruition. People were saying that he didn't want to come or whatever. Because, once we don't get a player, it's, well, he didn't want to come or he wasn't the right fit or Arsenal didn't want him. We did. We just didn't have the money because we couldn't sell Nketiah and these guys, right? And so I fear the same thing will happen is that he already wants to come to Arsenal. We've done all the groundwork. Ornstein said that 2 days ago. We've done extensive groundwork on this player. We've spoken to him. Gabrielle basically was on a podcast saying that we've spoken to him. So if that's the case, we better have the money to get him. And we should not have to sell to get him. We should not have to sell to get him. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not concerned about other teams being interested in him because I'd rather get rejected and him go somewhere else than him want to come to Arsenal, but we don't have the money to get him because we spent it on other shit. That's my problem. I do not care about other teams being interested in a top player. I expect that. I expect we're going to have to offer him a project that the other teams can also offer, but have to convince him, Brian, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, if Arteta wins nothing again, who do you want to see come in? I mean, listen, I really don't know. At this stage, any good manager that plays good football, that's probably won something. And if they haven't won something, their principles of play have to be aligned with what we know and love, for Arsenal. Like essentially, if you can't get a Luis Enrique level manager, then you go and get a Xavi Hernandez or you go get a Cesc or somebody like that. And you tell them that you want to play the Arsenal way and you want them to get good attackers and at least play good football, and hopefully, because good football, I do think leads you to trophies, not good football without any other principles, no good defense or whatever. But we have that. We just need a manager that knows how to coach a damn attack and get us over the line, So there's several managers that I feel like I would be thinking of, but right now I'm so concerned about the window, and I know Mikel's not going anywhere, and we're so far away from the end of the season that it's hard for me to even get into this state of mind. But there's that being said, there are plenty of managers that we could go after, and I don't really agree with this whole idea of, well, who could you bring in? Like there are managers. Um, let's see. Um, let's see. Breaking from Ruax is saying, I'm sure you copied and paste this. Rodrygo is expected to leave Real Madrid this summer and join a Premier League club before the Premier League officially starts. He is not in Xabi Alonso's plan for next season. It needs to be us. That's all if he actually truly, I mean this, if he actually and truly prefers Arsenal, we have to get him. Or else it would be just such a fail if we're talking about we don't have the money, or we have to sell, or Martinelli needs to go. I'll be sick to my stomach. I will not be able to look at this club again. Like there's just no way. He is 100% the type of player that would take us to the next level. Like I don't agree with all this, oh, but is he actually that good? And look at Martinelli's stats compared to him. And stop, it's like, no, I'm not trying to hear that, so let me just make sure nobody's cussing me out. Okay. Let's see. Didn't Ornstein already say he thinks we need to sell before going for Rodrygo? He says he's unsure of us needing to sell, so we'll see. But at this stage, it's Cronkies, give us the money and we'll figure it out later. You don't let something like this go by because you couldn't figure out how to sell Martinelli. It's come on. I don't want that. Cronkies don't care about next level. I'm sorry. I've kind of given up on being ambitious. I'll do myself and Football Manager. I get it. I don't want whoever our next manager to be affiliated with Arsenal. I just don't want whoever our next manager is to be affiliated with Arsenal. I get what you're saying. These people are trying to justify the Noni deal, but have reservations about Rodrygo. It just shows they don't want us to win. Noni is backup for Saka, never left winger. Genesis, I want to believe that, but until we actually see them bring in the left winger, it's, everything about Rodrygo from an Arsenal perspective has gone incredibly quiet outside of in the nose. I think we've done just about enough convincing. And if we're in a situation where we have to sell to get him, we might as well just tell him to go somewhere else. We're not going to be able to sell anyone. We're just not good at it. And it's like, we're not going to shove anybody out the door, so let's see. Hey, it's like mono, but we have effectively given Chelsea Pedro for free, who we should have signed. Do you think Gyokeres is going to get done? Who's Pedro? Are you talking about João Pedro or Pedro Neto? In either case, that's not a player that I would have wanted. Do I think Gyokeres is going to get done? I don't even know. Like, I like that it feels like we might get done, but maybe not. I don't know, man. They're saying that we're trying to get to a quick resolution, but I think Sporting needs to come down. So I don't know. Trossard is the only potential sale I've heard about. I'm hoping that behind the scenes deals are being negotiated for loan players as well as Nelson, Vieira, Lakanga. Yeah, the Trossard's got to go. Somebody's got to get out. I'm not trying to hear we couldn't sell. I'm not trying to hear, we couldn't get Rodrygo because we couldn't sell Trossard. That is just, this club needs to get so freaking for real right now. Nani base level is better than Nelly. I don't know. I don't want to be, like I don't, it's like we got to a certain point last season where we were doing up like, is Havertz is or Marino is Marino better than Havertz? I don't want to have those kind of conversations. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, is it better to get stung by a bee or to be bitten by a spider? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like both are kind of bad, so it's doing up Nelly versus Madueke is not the life I want going into the 2025-2026 season. So if that's our reality where should we start Nani or Martinelli, then we failed. you know. Madueke is not a bad signing, but it feels like we're wasting money on him and we won't get it for Rodrygo. No, sell to buy excuse doesn't work anymore. 52 million on Nani has broken that excuse. Last Jan, no buys. Last summer was profit, no excuses. At this level, it's fine margins. Nani is a right winger. This is dumb. He's not going to improve the left wing. How much would you sell Martinelli for considering the season deals? I mean, I guess you would have to get 50, 60 million for him. Do I think he's that much better than Brennan Johnson or Alanga or Nani? No, I don't. So I think he's in that bracket. He's not in the Leao Rodrygo bracket. That's going to probably go for 60 million plus. So yeah, 50, 55, 60, something like that. And that's why nobody's going to buy him. It's because nobody's going to see that as a player. Like they should be paying that. Like, sorry, and he's on very big wages, so you can't replace crap for crap every transfer window unless you're winning FL like this. Based on the Nani, Alanga, and Kudus sales, Martinelli has to go for around 60. I like you, Jess, but Martinelli better than those guys. But he's not as good as he's not in the same echelon as the Leaos or the Rodrigos, and that's the point. There's the Kudus, Brennan Johnson, Alanga, Noni Madueke bracket. And then there's the Rodrygo Leao bracket, and he's not in that bracket. He's not in the Luis Diaz bracket. Those brackets are where you're paying 60 million plus. He's not in that bracket. I think we all can be honest about that. If he was, we wouldn't be trying to get somebody in that upper bracket at this club. Do you know what I mean? He's in the bracket right below. No, nobody at Arsenal is worth more than 20 million because of wages. You are effed. I know I don't like this signing, but I love the rest of the signings we make. Any serious club would have sacked Arteta 5 times already. Kudus is better than all of them in that bracket. If he was, he would have went for more than 55 million. He wouldn't be at Tottenham. I'll say that. Kudus is a very good player, and I would love him to come in as an option for us. But he's not in the Rodrygo Leao bracket. He's not. He's in the bracket right below. Now there's still, a tier list in there, probably Kudus and like João Pedro would be at the top of that bracket, and like Brennan Johnson and Nani would be down towards the bottom of that bracket. But they're not in that upper 60 million plus group. They're just not, whatever happens, Arteta has to win a major this year. If the window closes and we don't sign a top striker, it's mad as we have the money and it would be a crime. My problem with Kudus is he's very emotional and reactive. We don't need more discipline problems. You ever look at Kudus stats, he's hot and cold, you mean, just like Nani. I just think Kudus has a lot of these really good raw skills that are useful in the Prem for good counterattacking sides. And, you can tell that he's somebody that he has good X factor. He can score special goals. Like, I'm not saying that he's a bum. I'm just saying that he's quite literally not in the Rodrygo bracket. And I think that that's not hard. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think they're all kind of in that 50 million pound range for a reason, like, come on. Madueke is the most ill-disciplined player in our squad right now by that standards. Watch him snatch the ball from Saka's hands to score pens. He won't do that at Arsenal, let's be real. He's not going to misbehave at Arsenal. He's given a lifeline. You know, he's surplus to requirements at a Champions League club, and another Champions League club is scooping him up. You know, so he's a lucky player. You know that he's not going to a Spurs or a West Ham or something like that. So, you know, he's not going to misbehave at Arsenal. Let's be real. You can get away with that at Chelsea. You're not getting away with that at Arsenal. If Eze comes, your 150 million pound midfielder will become redundant. I mean, I think you're a rival, or you're just an Arsenal fan that's negative, but I'm guessing you're a rival, but no other top teams think about this. Like, everybody says Arsenal need more quality, and then when we add more quality, then none of our players are gonna be redundant. Oh, Odegaard's never gonna get a game. Rice is never gonna get a game. Who at Liverpool is never getting another game and is redundant because Wirtz is coming in? What midfielder at Manchester City is redundant now that Reinders is come in? It's just something that only rivals say about Arsenal because they don't want us to get good players. They want us to be stuck with just 2 or 3 good players. Nobody thinks this way. And so all we will have done if we got Eze is just gotten even better. Adding Eze on top of our 105 million pound midfielder that was one of the best in the world last summer or last season, plus adding Zubamendi, one of the best sixes in world football, to Odegaard as well, and having Ethan is what rivals don't want. So that's why they act like, oh, well, your midfielder is going to be redundant. No, he's probably not. Um, Arteta wouldn't tolerate Madueke's behavior. He's not. Let's be real. Rodrygo's salary is super high. I think that's a problem. While Madueke is on 100K salary, he's not on that big of a salary, Madueke, if it's what's being reported. What is it, 80K per week or something around that? That's pretty low for a top 6 team, so, or a top 4 team. So that's not a big deal. Next is Eze in midfield. I don't think we can afford Rodrygo, Martinelli, Trossard as left wing options. Get them out of here. If that's what it takes to bring in Rodrygo, then you got to move them on, man. We got to be serious. Let's see. Sporting in Leipzig showing why you should never agree. Yeah. The gentlemen's agreements have got to be a thing of the past. Do you guys want to look at a comparing wingers and hybrid attackers thing from Billy Carpenter? It just popped up on my feed, and I think this could be kind of cool to look at. It has Morgan Rogers, Barcola, Leao, Rodrygo, Simmons, Eze, Gordon, and Madueke on it. Do you guys want to look at it? Yeah? Okay. Let's put it up. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if you guys can kind of see it. If you guys can't, then like I'll read most of it to you if you guys need, but let me make it bigger for myself so I can see what you guys are looking at. Okay, the numbers are kind of small, but I'll kind of like read them out to you, or actually let me save it and just make it into an overlay. Give me 2 seconds so you can make it a little bit bigger. That might be better for us. Let's see. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better, isn't it? Yeah, because I'm looking at it. It's a little blurry, but you can still kind of see the numbers better. So, um, you got Morgan Rogers, Barcola, Leao, Rodrygo, Simmons, Eze, Gordon, and Madueke. And those first couple, or like first 5, don't really matter. Like team, position, age, minutes played, and foot. But the successful defensive actions per 90. All of these players, I think, outside of Leao, which should not be a surprise, do their fair bit of defensive work. They're all in between 4.2 to 4. or almost 5 with Barcola. Like Rogers is at 4.58, Barcola is at 4.97, Rodrygo's at 4.68, Simmons at 4.97, Eze at 4.25. So, and Madueke is at 4.46. He's at the end there. So we know that all these players, except for Leao, do their defensive work. I don't think we really care that much about aerial duels per 90, but Rogers is doing the best there, I think, just on in a easy glance there. And both Rodrygo and Madueke are quite low there, but who really cares? They're wingers, like, let's be real. Successful attacking actions per 90. So doing just a quick look, the successful attacking actions per 90, the highest person on this list is Madueke, and pretty high up there, to be honest. Like, he's pretty clear of everyone. He has 7.8. Gordon has 5.07 and Leao has 5.58. So that's successful attacking actions per 90. Madueke is quite clear of everybody else. And like Eze has 4 per 90 and Rodrygo has just a bit more than that. Non-penalty goals per 90. At a quick glance here, the best person here is Barcola at 0.45. Everybody else is, let's see, Simmons is at 0.35, Eze is at 0.35, Madueke is at 0.31, and then everybody else is in 0.2 range. So there's that. Shots per 90. Now we need to take more shots, don't we? We need shooters. You know, obviously we want good shooters, but we need shooters, you know? And so looking at this, quick glance, Eze is top of that, shots per 90. He takes 3. Next is Madueke. I think from that you can discern that Arsenal want more shots. You know, I think one thing that we've bitched about quite a bit is we don't take enough shots, like, at all. So yeah, you know, and I'm just reading the stats so you can give a clear thing. I think that, you know, the stats are what they are. I'm not trying to manipulate anything. I'm giving you the stats so you can make a decision. But I do feel like if Madueke is top of a stat, then he's top of a stat. Like, he's there for a reason. So I'm not trying to manipulate the stats to show you that this player is better than this player. They are what they are, you know. So just take them as they are. Nobody's trying to gaslight you or anything like that. Let's see. So the shots, if you add Madueke and Eze, what you are adding is shots, and that's important. We don't take it anywhere near enough shots. Assists per 90. Quick glance, that's Barcola at 0.34 per 90. Everybody else is significantly lower than him. And like Madueke is 0.17, Eze is 0.23. So, you know, not really like the highest there. Crosses per 90. I would expect the actual wingers to be higher here. And so no surprise that Gordon and Madueke are high there. Madueke is way higher than everyone else. He's at 3.79. Now, are those good crosses? Like, this doesn't tell you much about, like, you know what I mean? Like, this doesn't tell you about the accuracy or what those crosses look like, but he does make quite a few crosses a game. Dribbles per 90. Barcola is really high on that. Leao is very high on that. They're both at in the 6 range, 6.08, 6.52. And then Madueke is a lot higher than everyone else. He has 7.36. So lots of dribbles, lots of shots. Now, successful dribble percentage. I think this is important. Are you dribbling for dribbling's sake, or are you getting past people? Let's see. On quick glance here, I want to say Madueke is the highest, or no? Yeah, 61% for Madueke. 61%, yeah, would be the highest out of all these players. 57% for like Leao, 54% for Rodrygo, 50% for Eze, 61% for Madueke. Um, and Barcola is like really kind of low there. He's at 37%. Um, but he's a young player, so it is what it is. Touches in the box per 90. Quick glance, Barcola has the most, 7.07 per 90. And then Madueke is next for 6.88. So he does get into the box. What he does with the ball when he's in the box, though, I think that's the most important thing. Progressive runs per 90. I want to say Madueke is top of that as well. 5.29. And then you have like Barcola and Leao in there doing their bit, as well as Rodrygo. And let's see, key passes per 90. Barcola and Leao top of that, 0.89 and 0.84. Madueke is at 0.72. Eze is at 0.63. And then through passes, the best is Simmons, which I think that makes sense. Especially he's also highest for passes in the penalty area per 90. He's a super creative player, so I would expect the number 10s to be a lot higher here. Now, Simmons is more of a passer than Eze or Rogers. We watch Rogers and Eze on a regular basis. They're more ball carrying, dribbler, flair players. Eze or Xavi Simmons, I think, can pick a better pass. So I'm not really surprised that he's higher than they are. But Rogers and Eze aren't quite as high as the actual wingers like Leao and Barcola and Madueke for their dribbles. So I think this is an interesting thing to, at least what I use these stats for is not to determine who's better than who. It's to understand what these players, what their playing style is, So yeah, I will, this is from Billy Carpenter. You can see it at the corner. And what I'll do right now is I will retweet it. If you guys are following me on Twitter, which you should be, Jessica Black TV, I will retweet it so you guys can look at it on your own as well when you're just chilling or whatever. So yeah, but I think it's important, to understand what you're getting. And I get that Madueke is not a player that we particularly are like excited to get, but I at least want to understand what the player is going to bring us. I at least want to understand that, because right now I don't really understand. I'll be honest, I really struggle with, what they're seeing with this player, So yeah, let's see what you guys are saying about that. Lionheart says facts. I think people are getting carried away about him coming and playing left wing. Would he really put our starting left wing on 50K per week? I don't really think so. I don't actually think he's on 50K per week. I think he's closer to 80, but I understand what you're saying. I think it's still up in the air because I don't think you can really blame Arsenal fans for not maybe believing that he's not coming in to play left wing, because it wouldn't be the first time that Arsenal pulled the rug out from underneath us. There's been plenty of windows where, the talking heads are talking up the window, that it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And then we end up getting something completely different or something way less, and the trust was really broken in the last window. And I know some people are like, just let that window go. But it's just like any other relationship, trust is built. And I think the trust has been severely damaged. And so Arsenal will need to build that trust back up by, living up to the windows that they're putting out into the media. Some of it is not true. I don't believe everything that people are saying, but, at the bare minimum, I expect them to have the unprecedented window that they spoke about. Arteta said, be patient. We're going to have a big window. I have goosebumps, so I think at the very least, like, you can sympathize with the people not really believing that it's, going to be what they say it's going to be. Seems to me like he lacks end product. Maybe he can become our Dembele by some miracle. I mean, I think that's his biggest flaw, is that it's not that he doesn't get into the box and he doesn't get into good positions and that he doesn't take shots. It's what are the quality of the shots that he's taking? What are the quality of the crosses that he's putting in? Those types of things are going to keep him from being a top quality winger because his end product is so low. So it's that finish end thing. And some players get it and some players don't. And that's my fear. It's, you know, maybe he has all the things that Martinelli doesn't have, but Martinelli at least has the ability to finish when he gets in the box, and Trossard as well. He may be missing some of that ball carrying, that athleticism and that speed, but we know if we put Trossard in the box, he's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And so I think it's a little bit of a risk to bring in somebody that doesn't bring us more goals, maybe gives us different things, but takes away the goals aspect of things. So there you go. I don't think Mikel had goosebumps. He should get that rash checked out with the doctor. I'm crying. Victor says, I've never said he's a bad player. The stats show that there's a lot of potential there. He reminds me of a Sesko situation. We're buying potential, but we have to get our other deals done, period. I can just about stomach this deal if, I could just about stomach it if the other stuff gets done. Let's see. I really want Gyokeres to come in like now. Who said that? Fabrizio said that it was going to get done around Sunday. I don't see that anywhere, and I'm sure if he had said it, we will have seen it somewhere. So if you can direct me to where you saw it or whatever, but I haven't seen it yet. Let's see. Madueke finishes better than Havertz alongside running, dribbling, and carrying the ball better. Considering Havertz was 65 million, I think this is a bargain. Clear progress from 2 years back. Harpreet says she's overhyping Martinelli and Trossard. I'm not overhyping them, but all I've said is that they score goals and they've have more goal involvements than he does. And so you wouldn't say that Madueke's key strength is that when you bring him onto the pitch, he's going to get you a goal. But we know that that's probably Martinelli's best quality, is that if you put him in front of the goal, he might score, and Trossard as well. So, we don't always have to overdo it. Like, I'm saying something pretty clearly. So how I'm overrating somebody by saying what their actual qualities are. Our problem with Martinelli is not that he can't score goals. It's that he is not really a great dribbler. He's not a good 1v1. He's not particularly creative. So, and this is coming from somebody that's quite critical of Martinelli. So, not every day, being super negative about players when you don't have to be. Not every day listening to somebody say something positive about a player and saying they're overhyping them. Sometimes you just have to take it as what it is. I think we have a hard time hearing positive things or things that are not innately negative about players we don't rate, because we can't emotionally, we can't take it in. And I feel like that's just strange. It's like, if you don't like Odegaard, if I say that Odegaard has nice hair, you think Odegaard has nice hair? Oh my God. It's like, not every day overreaction. To be fair, he's got some numbers compared to the other pricey Chelsea wingers, even if it looks all over the place. I believe that TalkSport mentioned that Gyokeres deal should be concluded on Sunday. So if it's TalkSport, that's different than Fabrizio, but hopefully it gets done soon. I'm tired. This signing is definitely stats heavy. What happened to the eye test from people at the club? We're a stats scouting club now, that's who we are as Arsenal now. We do the stats, so I don't know. Martinelli and Trossard are not bad finishers unless under pressure. We need finishers under pressure like Gyokeres, Rodrygo, and Saka. We have one. That's to complete the trio. The league is ours. And I agree with that. I think at the end of the day, Trossard and Martinelli, if you said one thing that they had over Madueke, it's their finishing. They're players that in most circumstances, they'll score. I think you're absolutely correct. When we're under pressure, they miss chances, but you would never say Madueke is a good finisher, ever, in any way, shape, or form. So that's my point. Not being overtly negative about a player doesn't mean that you're overhyping them. Is Madueke an upgrade over Martinelli, though we are not sure if he'll play on the left? I think it's more of, this is my problem with signings like this, is that my mind computes it as like it makes us different, but not necessarily better, you know? Um, does that make sense? I feel like Madueke makes us different, because I can't necessarily say that definitively I think he's better than Martinelli. He has different qualities to Martinelli, just like Havertz has different qualities to Jesus, but does he make us better? No. Does he make us different? Yes. He may score more goals than Jesus and maybe better aerially, but he has nowhere near the level of technical ability or creative ability that Jesus has. So we still have the same problem that we had with Jesus with Havertz. We're just different, you know? So it's different, but is it better? No. And that's why you have to bring in the Rodrigos and the Ezes because they undoubtedly make you better. They don't just make you different, they make you better. Um uh let's see. He scores a hat trick against Wolves and then four other goals. That's an average of one goal in 10 games. That's not good. Never said that he was a good scorer or anything. I think that's the exact point that I'm making is that he's not particularly a great finisher. What those stats tell you is not that he's an amazing player. It gives you a good idea of what he is. And I feel like that's what people are missing. Nobody's saying that he's a great player or he's this amazing finisher. In fact, the stats actually say that he gets into good positions, he takes lots of shots, but those shots are not great shots. People say he's rapid, but what's the use behind being rapid if your decision making is poor in transition? Why does Arsenal always have issues with signing big players, but goes all the way spending big over lesser quality players? It's frustrating. Um, Someone like Brahim Diaz is far better than Madueke, and you could have had him for less money and lower wages. These stats are meaningless, and that is why Arteta keeps getting it wrong. When Klopp bought Saudio, he did not look at stats. He saw his potential. Same with Van Dijk. Yeah, I forgot about Eze. We need Eze or Rodrygo ASAP. Then I'll be confident. So, yeah, I think Madueke makes you different. I don't necessarily feel like he makes you any better. Uh, upfront doing a lot of heavy lifting over 3 years. Let's see. But yeah, let it fly in. So we'll see how it goes. We'll definitely see how it goes, but I really need that Gyokeres done. I'm getting a little nervous about it now because it just doesn't feel like they're breaking down and they need to, giving him more days off to see if he'll break is to me like, why don't you just get the deal done? It's like stop being an asshole. Sorry. Isn't different better when we already lack isn't different better when we already lack unpredictability? Um, you can be more unpredictable. I just think it's like hard to predict how much of a variance that's going to give us, or how much of a boost it's going to give us. I think unpredictability is great if you can finish. And so I think Angelo, it's really important to see the full picture of what our window looks like, and then we can kind of make that distinction, because if you add a Madueke who's unpredictable but he's passing the ball to Havertz, how much better are we going to be if Havertz still is there and we're not finishing? So I just think it's important to see Gyokeres come in, and I guess one of Eze or Rodrygo, I guess, I don't know, but yeah, I think he's making us different, I think. We shouldn't need to have these discussions. It's so obvious what we need at this window, and Arsenal are up to their old tricks again. Regardless of how good Noni will be, he's not what we need. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, Madueke is unpredictability. We'll see what that means. And there's this thing that came out from Arsen, I think is so important. And it's not like we necessarily needed Arsen to tell us. I think it's just somebody that we really respect in terms of the way that they see football, is, you know, is so important, because he's talking about the way that football is being played. I hate when there's flies around me. It's like I leave the back screen kind of like open for the dogs, and every once in a while fly gets in, and quite literally it drives me insane hearing them buzz. Like I literally cannot stand it. But Arson was talking about how PSG have, ball carriers and dribblers, and they have the ability to, break down teams without having to pass. And right now, that's one of our biggest flaws is that we have to do these patterns of play to get through teams. And when they study us and they have good coaches and they block our passing lanes, and that's when we get the horseshoe of death. There's nobody that we can give the ball to that can dribble through these blocks and to open it up, and that's what they have in abundance. They can break you down with passing through Vitinha or, Due or whatever player that they have, but they also just have a bunch of players that can just dribble past you. And they also have pace on the counter attack as well with the Barcolas and the Dembeles and players like that. And so we need to give ourselves that unpredictability. I just wish that we were doing it with a player that was much better. And so Arsenal are banking on his potential, and it's it's a risk. It really is, especially if you end up not getting other things. But, we definitely need more pace. We need more ball carrying. We need better dribblers. And he definitely has pace, is most likely a better dribbler than what we have, and is a better ball carrier. I just think the player is inconsistent. And yeah, it's just, yeah, You know, just be patient with the Gyokeres deal. They're close, but in a negotiation, the last bit of territory is often the hardest to cover. I trust you on that one. What need is players to bring GA? If we're better here last year, we win the league. Do you think people are just judging him more on the Chelsea banter than looking at him objectively? Look at Barcola, Due, Crava. Barcola is the better stats wise, but Due is the more desired. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, I think that, the banter is getting to people, and the Chelsea of it all is a big part of it. I think taking Chelsea's leftovers, there's just a lot of hurt there and a lot of history there that's not really good history, if that makes sense. Them taking our better players and winning, us taking their dregs and losing, them overtaking us, winning all the trophies and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of pain there and a lot of history. And so I think, the emotional side of things is really getting to people, but I also think their feelings are absolutely valid. Should those feelings make you, act out of character and make you DM people and abuse them? Absolutely not. But just the general feeling, I think, is valid. And so I do think people are finding it difficult to look at him objectively. But even when you look at him objectively, it's hard to justify that he's the type of player that's going to make us better. Does he add an extra body if Saka gets injured? Yes. And I think that, you know, that's good, but do we need that for 50 million? Does it need to be Nani? Does it have to be a player that's incredibly inconsistent and a little frustrating? We already have frustrating players, so I think there's just a lot of uncertainty, and there's many layers there that make this a very frustrating signing, and just one that's, I think, very confusing. Um, but I can't really blame people for being mad that we're buying another Chelsea player. I just feel like, people that are like, well, you're just immature and you can't just, and I'm just like, I just feel like that's incredibly disingenuous and, invalidating people's feelings when I think you're just only saying that because you want to make it okay. Like, you have to at least see it from that side. Maybe you don't fully feel the same way, but to completely invalidate that feeling and call it immature or whatever, I feel like is why people are raging, because they don't want to feel gaslit. Um, Consistently buying from a rival and them getting better and us not stagnating is not something to be like, you're just being immature if you don't understand why we're doing it. They've given Arteta all the money he wants, bro. Should at least win a Carabao Cup this season. We could have gotten Gilberto Mora for pennies, and we spent 52 million on average. That thought has given me clarity. Arteta can see the data. I see at least. I guess he gets much better data than I. The right wing justify Madueke acquisition. The left wing numbers don't. He was bought for the right wing. Simple as that. I hope so. Farhan says, can we at least agree the problem is not the ownership, but it's the coach? It's hysterical how fans are laughing at him 6 months ago and are now saying he's actually good. look at his stats. As always, trust your eyes. If it's true that Ethan was demanding more minutes before he commits himself to a new contract, then I think Madueke has been bought to replace him, and there's been no talks of the Wanyeri signing. John, there's been plenty of reports, even after Madueke basically signing, that it's moving in the right direction. We have nothing to worry about. So, yeah. We don't have to worry about Ethan. I think the problem is people are not like just accepting that Ethan is going to be 8-10, cover. And he maybe doesn't want to play right wing, but he's going to sign a new contract. That's been said multiple times. So it's like, I don't know if it's just I feel like maybe they just don't trust that Arteta is going to trust him enough to take Odegaard off, because of like last season and how things panned out. But he wouldn't sign a new deal if he wasn't given some assurances that he is going to be the Odegaard backup. It's been said many times that he's an 8/10 in the Arsenal, kind of depth chart, so I think we have to let go of this. He's going to be playing right wing. And if we bring in Madueke, then he's never going to play. It's just the case that Arteta needs to get confident enough to take Odegaard off at the 70th minute, 60th minute, bring on Ethan, start him in games, rest Odegaard, because it's only beneficial to everybody. It's beneficial for Ethan to play his right position and for Odegaard to get more rest, so I think it's a plus all the way around. And I'm not particularly worried about the Ethan thing at all. Ethan's not a worry. Rodrygo is. Facts, Jess. I hate when the ultra positive fans believe they are the spokesperson for all fans. I just think it's the line, and as somebody that can see most of the time both sides and I try to be as balanced as possible, but I'm also not afraid to show my true emotions, because it's not my job to try to make you guys feel a certain way. I'm a fan, and this is a fan channel. So I'm not a journalist. I'm not trying to keep credentials or keep my, my job at Arsenal by putting out propaganda. My job is more about being a fan and us communicating as fans and building a community. So I do try to see most sides, because I want to give you guys a clear picture, but I also leave space for just true emotions to come out. I understand the Madueke concern, and I share those concerns 110%. I believe people that are saying, what are you mad about? Or, trying to, I would say just they're being intentionally obtuse about the real reason why people are upset about it, and saying things like, well, do you want Saka's legs to fall off? You said you wanted more attackers. Now you're getting more attackers. Now you're mad. The problem is not that we don't want a right wing, or that we want Saka to get ran into the ground, or, we don't want attackers. It's about it being this attacker, and the response to it. And then having people say, I don't understand why people are upset, is incredibly annoying. And it's why people are acting up worse. I think if we could have honest conversations without people being so attached to their narrative and their side, I'm either super positive or super negative. If we could just put all that shit aside and just be honest about how we feel, we would have more constructive conversations as a community, and you have way less of these big emotional shifts left and right. As I can tell you, a big reason why people are upset about the Madueke thing is not only because they have to contend with signing a player that they just do not rate, but they also have to deal with people invalidating their feelings, and that makes people more upset. That makes people more pissed. This big ass fly. I'm gonna have to kill it. But listen, we have another show at 1 or 9 p.m. with Matisse. We're going to be talking more about the Madueke stuff, so you guys can really get your thoughts and feelings out. The only thing I ask is that we're kind to our guests, or else more guests will not come. But we will definitely talk more. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on the way out. And join us in about an hour and a half for that show, and we'll talk more about it. And I'll see you guys in the next time on the next one, hopefully without this fly getting on my nerves. Love y'all. Bye.